Good morning and welcome everybody. I think David Bamford has given, as part of the introduction to this talk, this session about where all the big fields in the North Atlantic, he's already given a flavour of some of the challenges we might face in North Atlantic. I'd like to show you some slides as an introduction to this before we get into hearing the talk. So, can I have the first? Yeah. Where are all the big fields hiding? The title of the session. I'd like to show you these slides prepared by Richmond Energy Partners, Keith Myers and Alistair B. This is a picture showing where the big discoveries have been in the last, from 2008 to 2012, and indeed where the drilling activity has been. And you can see that it's principally in the southern hemisphere, with the exception of the Leviathan field in the eastern Mediterranean. A whole chunk of activity and chasing new plays and prospects in the southern half of the south of the equator. Yet nothing, as you can see, or very little in the North Atlantic. It's accentuated further if you look at the next slide, which is drills wells plan for 2012, which again shows a huge concentration of drilling on the south of, in Africa, East and West Africa, South America and Indonesia. Dave Bamford used the analogy of this looks like an 8-year-old football game, and that all the kids hare around chasing after the ball, and the ball is on East and West Africa just now, and the industry, lemming-like, is going for that. Does that mean there's a problem in the North Atlantic? I had a chat with Keith yesterday, just asking, what about plays in Russia, going across into the Arctic Circle? And his view was that in Russia, they're not doing new play exploration in Russia. And then you go around to the Arctic, into the Beaufort, they're not drilling wells there yet. So again, new plays aren't being explored there yet. So the bulk of the new play exploration, he feels, is in the, as you can see there, in the South Atlantic. Looking further, the next picture I think is quite interesting. A view here about where exploration has been in the mature plays and where it is in new plays. And you can see there that mature plays are in the Jurassic and older stratigraphy, whereas all the new work seems to be in the Cretaceous and younger. And it may well be that that's driven by most of the new play work is on passive margins, which are Cretaceous and younger, and possibly mainly driven by geophysics. And much of the new play work they've been doing in the last few years is geophysics-led in passive margins. Now, does that mean, what does that mean for the North Atlantic? And David poses a question, is it geology or is it the fiscal regimes and such like? I have to admit, I don't think it's a fiscal regime, knowing what we know in Ireland and knowing that I've done work in eastern Canada. So is it something to do with geology? And I thought this picture might be quite interesting. It shows the conjugates of North America and Africa, and shows the type of margin, a volcanic margin moving up into non-volcanic margin. And we spent a lot of work over the last couple of years working with David Roberts. And his view on, say, for example, the difference between volcanic and non-volcanic margins is the rate of subsidence immediately post-rift. And his view was that in a volcanic margin, you've got a relatively hot margin, and so immediately post-rift, you get relatively slow subsidence, and they have a chance of finding post-rift source rocks. And coincidentally, the volcanic margins are where we seem to have oil discoveries. And then as you move up into the non-volcanic, it's colder, so it's subsidized quicker, but also you get quite a high degree of stretching. And so if you have any pre-rift source rocks, those are likely to be overstretched. And that's possibly the case in the Porcupine Basin, South Porcupine Basin in Ireland, and maybe in the Rockall Basin, and possibly over on the other side in some of the basins offshore Newfoundland, perhaps the Orphan Basin. And where you might find pre-rift source rocks is where you haven't had the same amount of extension, like the Jeanne d'Arc Basin. So it might be something to do with geology. But I think it's a thought, and that's what we hear. I think the program we're going to hear this morning is a series of 2 talks this morning, one looking at risk and assembling the right expertise from Brian Smart, and then after that, Paul Harrington on the use of gore surveys to elucidate source rocks. And then after the break, I'll give a talk on Nova Scotia, and then we'll hear a talk from Ian Van on Ireland, and then finally a talk from Icon on Western Shetlands. And we'll see by the end of the day whether we think it's geology or is it fiscal terms, which is the main reason that the plays aren't working. So that as a background, I'd like to hand over to Brian Smart from Petromal to talk on risks. Thank you.